Welcome to Hot Route Takes. I'm your host, Brian Sarver, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Christian Mills.
Today we are doing 5 landing spots for some of the premier free agencies in the 2023 free agent class, offense edition. You want to lead us off, Christian?
Yeah, I'll go first. My number one, well, he ain't number one, but my first guy I'm going to start off with is Geno Smith. He's a free agent this year. Pete Carroll did say they hope they bring him back. The only thing that kind of scares me is Seattle only has about 32 in mil in cap as we speaking right now. Geno is 32, but I feel like you got to bring Geno back after this season. I mean, they do have 9 picks, and one of them is number 5 pick. I kind of believe in Geno more than these quarterbacks. I mean, I'd rather take him. He's got a year in the system. I think you can pay Geno what he wants, maybe like a 2-3 year deal. It'd be good for both sides. The only thing that scares me is they need to kind of help this offensive line and defensive line out in Seattle. But other than that, they have the weapons for Geno, and he's, like I said, has been there, and that's he's successful. He's been in the league so far. Another team that's kind of interesting to me is Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, no more Tom. He's retired for real this time. The Buccaneers do have 2 quarterbacks on their rosters, Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask, signed through next year. Trask has only had 3 completions in his NFL career. Gabbert has 13 career wins in 11 years. I mean, if it's not Geno, I don't know where they're going to go, but I'm a whole lot happier if I'm Tampa with Geno than these 2 guys. They do have the top 19th pick in the draft this year. In my opinion, though, all the top quarterbacks definitely will be gone by the 19th pick. So I think you go get a guy like Geno, and we've seen Jameis Winston. I'm not comparing Geno to Jameis, but they both are pretty good in the vertical offenses. So I think Geno can go in what they have in Mike Evans and Godwin. I think it'd be a nice fit in Tampa, and not really how people think might be a rebuilding year in that weak division. They go get Geno, and they have a chance to maybe win this division.
Yeah, if I'm Seattle, I definitely want to bring Geno back. I think, what they have going on in Seattle, it worked really well, and I think you want to try to build on that, not completely restart with another young quarterback. They do have the 5th overall pick, but personally, I'm not super high on Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. If one of them makes it, good for them. I'm hoping they do make it, but I don't like them that much for NFL quarterbacks. I think this is a weak quarterback class. I think you roll with Geno, see what you got. I mean, he's going to be a little bit cheaper than a lot of the other quarterbacks on the market, so I do like Geno. I also do like Geno Smith in the Tampa Bay offense. Bruce Arians likes to push the ball down the field. We saw that plenty with Jameis Winston. We saw that plenty with Tom Brady. And they got the receivers to do so. And like you said, that division is pretty weak, and he could step right in there, and they have a pretty good shot at winning that division. I like both those fits for Geno. I have Ryan Tannehill as my first free agent on offense, and he's not, I wouldn't say he's a premier quarterback in the NFL, but he's a solid guy that can definitely bridge a gap for you if you need, or you just need a solid quarterback to come and play for you. I think a good spot for him, I don't think he's going to stay in Tennessee this year. Tennessee's kind of in no man's land right now as a franchise. They might end up cutting their losses with Tannehill, and he is a very scheme-specific quarterback, and I think for the right price or scheme, he could be a very valuable player. I think Tannehill is best at when he has a strong running game to lean on, so he can set up those play-action shots down the field. That's what he does best, is throw the football down the field with a clean pocket. I think an interesting fit for him is the Falcons. He gets to team up with his old offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, and the Falcons this year, with an average at best offensive line, a journeyman quarterback in Marcus Mariota, and a lackluster running back room. They did have Cordell Patterson, but he missed quite a few games this year. With all of that lackluster supporting cast, they still average the 4th most yards per carry at any other team in the NFL. 4.9 yards per carry with that infrastructure and that team. I mean, that is really solid. And, hats off to Arthur Smith. This is still definitely a rebuilding team, and they do have a young quarterback in Desmond Ridder. This is a guy that I recommend anyone that likes football and likes quarterback play to listen to Jordan Palmer and all the work he's done. He's done an excellent job. He does really good work with quarterbacks. He once said that Ritter's biggest strength is his buy-in. The kid does an excellent job preparing. He could learn a great deal from a guy like Tannehill, who embodies a lot of the same mental traits and toughness, and also has a similar build and play style. I think Tannehill could step in and immediately be an upgrade over Mariota again. But it's still in the realm of possibility that Tannehill does return to Tennessee, especially considering they'll have $9.5 million in dead cap in 23 if they cut him. But if in 24, if they cut Tannehill, they'll save $27 million against cap. So I do think Tannehill could stay. I know Derrick Henry would like him probably to stay, but that's where I think Tannehill could end up.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Maybe teaming up with his old OC, and we've seen in Arthur Smith. He's kind of surprised a lot of people with this Atlanta team, showing how good of a coach he is. I mean, he took this team that a lot of people thought wouldn't do much and kind of showed, hey, I can get this team ground and pounding and get things moving if I need to. And like you kind of hinted on, not a strong running back room. Well, not strong, but just not what everybody else in the league I feel like has in that running back room. I also think Ryan Tannehill would be a good fit, but I think Desmond kind of showed bits and pieces of what he has, and I think maybe if I'm Atlanta, I'll at least go with Desmond because the Ryan Tannehill contract. And Tennessee, if I'm them, I mean, you done been with Ryan this long. Why not just bite another year till we seen when he went out? Malik Willis didn't even – I mean, he played that one game, then they went and got Joshua Dobbs. So it's really how much of Tennessee's new GM likes Ryan Tannehill or wants to go into a different direction. I like both fits, but it's just which team I guess kind of wants them more. My next guy is Jacoby Myers, New England Patriots wide receiver. We've seen New England just kind of cut ties on wide receiver. They never really get fully committed into one, and Jacoby Myers just hadn't really maybe shown enough for New England to want to pay him, but I like him in Green Bay a lot. Even if Aaron is not the quarterback next year, I think Jordan Love, if you have Jordan Love or Aaron, you want to build up this offense. Even more with Jordan Love, you'd have to, I'd feel like, just to maybe see what you got on his last year of his deal. I think the Packers would be a good fit for him just because, you have Christian Watson's there. That's a nice guy to take over the top. Jacoby Myers move the chains. I mean, just that's what he did in New England. That's what Green Bay really needs at this point. Jacoby Myers is only 26, and I think that's going to be a nice piece that you can add to a team and maybe keep on the team for a while to build up to he's just now entering his prime. Like I said, he's not an elite guy, but just a guy that, can do them dunks and dips that Green Bay kind of needs. The last thing I think is, Green Bay, Christian Watson, and him, they get another piece. That's a nice little offensive weapons they had that people have been kind of saying they don't have weapons, and even Aaron's kind of cried about it. It's just a young group. I think you maybe add Jacoby Myers to that room. That's another guy that, can maybe teach some of these young guys just some of maybe them traits that he's learned in New England to build upon. Another place I like for Jacoby Myers is the Baltimore Ravens. New OC, maybe they pass more, surprising a lot of people this year, but I think this team desperately needs wide receivers. Like I kind of said in the last pod, they have Deshaun Jackson this past year, and it's just, I love Deshaun Jackson with the Eagles, but his time is up. Rashad Bateman has showed signs that he could be a number one, but I believe he broke his foot this year, missed time, and then the other wide receivers just couldn't pick up his production. And I think this year they maybe have Poncho, I believe his name, and then Bateman's it on the roster at wide receivers, I'm pretty sure of.
Devin Duvernay.
Yeah, Devin Duvernay would be there. But I just still think just that wide receiver crew, and with Greg Roman gone, this is the chance for Baltimore to maybe improve an insane amount on their passing game and getting that coordinator in from Georgia. And we've seen him like to get the ball out and pass it around in Georgia. I think Jacoby Myers would be a nice guy to add there. I like both of these fits for Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I like Jacoby Myers to both those teams as well. I think Green Bay, they've needed a receiver like that for a while now, and Jacoby Myers kind of embodies a lot of the things that Randall Cobb was for Green Bay for a long time, and he's a slot guy. He can line up outside too, and he moves the sticks for your offense, and I think that is a very important role, and I think that's a big part of what they were missing. Christian Watson is a lot of things, and I wouldn't say he's a slot guy that moves the sticks. I wouldn't say he's that, but he's kind of their big play guy and a guy that can win down the field. And I think Jakobi Meyers is a nice complement to that, and I think he adds another element to the offense that can make it a little bit more dangerous. They got the running game. Aaron Rodgers isn't down, and even if Aaron Rodgers leaves, that's a nice, almost security blanket for Jordan Love to find underneath when he needs somebody. But I also like Jakobi Meyers in Baltimore. I don't know if Rashad Bateman is a true number one guy, but he has shown flashes and spurts of being a number one guy, and he was a first-round draft pick. So I would assume that they're going to continue with Rashad Bateman being a feature piece in their offense. I think Jakobi Meyers could be a nice complement to that. But my next guy is Mike Gesicki, and I would say this is a hard one. I like 3 teams here, though. Green Bay is somewhat of a mysterious team because so much of their offseason hinges on Aaron Rodgers and his decision going forward. But if they do bring back Rodgers, I can see them adding a guy that's a seam threat like Mike Gesicki is. That's a weapon Rodgers really had never had. This is a better player than Robert Tonyan. Let's not lie here. Mike Gesicki is a really good player, and I understand he had a down year in Miami, but this is not who Mike is. It's just it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good offense for Mike. So I think he can go on and have a great deal of success wherever he goes next. But if Rodgers doesn't come back, it's hard to imagine the Packers transitioning into a pass-heavy offense. Last year, they did move a little bit more towards the running game because of the lack of weapons, but I wouldn't think if they were transitioning to Jordan Love, they would change that. They probably would continue to be a run-heavy offense because Jordan Love is young and unproven. And in that scenario, I doubt the Packers would go after a guy like Mike Gesicki who can't really block. I'm kind of leaning that run game a little bit more to help young Jordan Love. The other team I have, or the second team I have, is the Denver Broncos. New head coach in town, Sean Payton. Things could be a little bit different moving forward on offense. I think a huge thing for Russell Wilson could be getting a big body over the middle of the field that he can hit. He has struggled throwing the ball over the middle of the field in his career, but this is also a very different offense than he ran before. Jimmy Graham was a big part of the success Russell Wilson had 2015, 16, 17 in Seattle, and that was because of that ability to find that guy in the middle of the field. Russell Wilson traditionally has a lot of success pushing the ball down the sidelines, but he's just struggled throwing over the middle of the field, and a lot of that has to do with him being a shorter quarterback at, I believe, 5'11", 5'10", something like that. But getting a big target across the middle of the field would play wonders for him. And not only is Russell Wilson familiar with a guy like Mike Gesicki, a seam buster, if you will, but Sean Payton also had a very similar player, just like Russell Wilson played with in Seattle, Jimmy Graham. He played for Sean Payton and had his best seasons under Sean Payton. So I do think they have a very good chance to make a big leap this year on offense. Denver does, and they have very little committed to their tight end room with only having Albert, I'm going to try this last name here, but Aquingbonum. Really sorry to that guy. I butchered it. Greg Dulcich and Hunter Thedford under contract in 23, so they definitely have room for a guy like Mike, and I think he'd be a great fit. The third team is the New York Giants. Mike Gesicki actually grew up a Giants fan, and they are in need of a tight end. I think Mike could be a really solid addition to this Giants offense that is really lacking a number one receiving threat, and Mike can be that guy, and he could also really help the continued development of Daniel Jones. I'm real excited to see where Mike Gesicki goes next year. Yep, that's my second player.
Yeah, I like two of those teams you hit on for Mike. I like him going to Denver, kind of let Russ maybe cook finally, but I think Sean Payton has a lot, maybe not to prove, but just show without Drew Brees, he can be a great coach, and they're tied to Russell Wilson. They have to make it work. So if I'm that front office and I don't want to look dumb, I'm going out there and getting as many weapons as I can to help Russell and Sean Payton be successful this year. I understand that's a tough division, but kind of like what you hit on, he had Jimmy Graham, and he was successful, both of them, with Jimmy Graham. So I think that's a good player maybe to go out, get Mike to play what Jimmy Graham was doing in the past and help him a lot. I really like him going to New York. Maybe, he could live out his dream of being a fan of that team and playing on that team. That's pretty neat to me. But we seen Evan Ingram when he got drafted there show bits and pieces of how good he was at the tight end position there. And to me, Mike, maybe not this year because he didn't have the play, but him and Evan Ingram are pretty close to being like good tight ends and maybe can take that step in being elite tight ends. I think Mike would add a big, great leap for that New York offense and help Daniel Jones if that's where he's a free agent right now, but more than likely coming back after this playoff push they had. And to give him a real number one guy, if it even is the tight end, just somebody that can help him, with a weapon and help Barkley. But, I mean, out of those two picks, I'd be excited to see him in New York. My third guy is a tight end, too. It's Dalton Schultz. I think Miami'd be a cool fit for him. I understand the cap's a little iffy, but I think with Mike gone, you need a guy that kind of what Mike couldn't do, be a run blocker. And I think you get a guy like Dalton, you get that great blocker and tight end and a great route runner also. Just a good guy that Tua can dip and dunk it off to, that we see that emergency blanket. It seems like with Dak, when it was Dak about to get sacked, Dalton's there open in a little zone, like where the defense isn't. So I think that would help Miami just so much and help this great duo wide receivers they have down there in Miami, and just a nice blanket that maybe Tua can throw to and maybe not take so many hits that we've seen this past year. Another fit that I like Dalton to go to is the Washington Commanders. Definitely after their new offensive coordinator we just seen them hiring, Eric V. We see what he does with Travis Kelce. I understand a lot of people might say that's Andy Reid, but he was there. He understands the seam. He was the one, I can't even talk, throwing the seam to the players and trying to get it in their heads. So I think Dalton Schultz, we've seen Logan Thomas there, and he hadn't shown that he's that guy. So I think you add Dalton, like I said, it's kind of his build and Travis Kelce's, I'm not going to say the same, but that's a pretty close comparison if he can take that next step. And we know Ron Rivera's a run-first team, but I just think them going out there and hiring Eric B shows a lot that maybe this offense isn't going to be Ron Rivera's offense. I think they're going to give this man the keys to this offense and maybe go out there. Their wide receiver crew is, to me, good. That's a Scary Terry, and Curtis Samuel and Joshua Dotson. That's a good wide receiver crew. You go get a guy like Dalton Schultz and hiring that offense coordinator. Washington Commanders, to me, a scary fit if he somehow lands there.
All right. I like Dalton Schultz a lot to the Commanders. I think him being that guy that can play both sides of the offense, pass and run very well, would be a good fit for what they do over there in Washington. I think, they want to run the ball, and that's a tight end that can play that role for you, and he's a really solid guy. However, he kind of, I think, prices himself out of Miami because he probably will be the premier tight end in free agency this year, and Miami's got quite a few holes they need to fill, and tight end might not be that one they spend the big dollars on. But however, I mean, I would love to see him in Miami if they can make the dollars work, because he's exactly what they do need. Mike Gesicki, he played on the franchise tag last year, and he wasn't nearly as productive. And a lot of the reason why is because Mike McDaniel comes from the San Francisco coaching tree and Shanahan tree, and they like to run the wide zone, and that really depends on what tight ends you got on the roster. And Mike Gesicki's not a guy that's going to be able to block guys on the end of the line of scrimmage. So Dalton Schultz can do that, and I think he could be a really good fit for Miami. However, like I was saying, I don't think the dollars quite make sense, but if they make it work, I would love to see it. My next player is Juju Smith-Schuster, and I have one team for him, and it is the Baltimore Ravens. I like this fit a lot. Baltimore is in need of a quality pass catcher, like we had hinted on, talked about a little bit here. Greg Roman is out the door, which might lead to receivers wanting to play with Lamar, or it won't. I don't know. With Rashad Bateman looking like a solid receiver, I think pairing another versatile receiver would be a great thing for them. I think Juju wins quick off the line and can be a great fit into a lot of the RPOs Baltimore likes to run. He's very physical at the catch point and is also proficient as a blocker on the perimeter. And that all of these things are really important for a Baltimore offense, who will probably still be a run-first offense that is going to rely on some of these RPOs and quick passes to Juju, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, all these guys. And Juju, I mean, he might stay in KC. He did get his prove-it deal last year, and he finished just short of 1,000 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I mean, I really think he proved it. I don't think he's a true number one guy, but I think he's a nice complement to what they would have. And I think he is a reasonable priced player as well that they can add. So I think he could be a nice complement to this Ravens core of players.
Yeah, I'd like to see Juju maybe go to Baltimore, and like you kind of hinted on, a lot of people kind of gave him hate for going to KC, but maybe he's hearing that hate after winning the Super Bowl, maybe want to show people like, hey, it's not all Patrick Mahomes. I've got a little bit to show. He goes to Baltimore maybe and help Lamar that desperately needs the help, kind of like you hinted on. But in reality, I just see him maybe going back to KC and trying to run it back, and he can, run it back and make his TikToks. But that's just my opinion on Juju. But my next guy is Caleb McRae, Atlanta's offensive tackle. Atlanta surprised a lot of people with running the ball, and I think this guy had a big effect in them getting that rushing like they were. Good fit for me. I see Washington Commanders, they get that new offensive coordinator. Maybe the team's not a run first team, and maybe, like I said, they give him the keys to maybe do what he wants with the offense. But the Washington Commanders, they need them. The offensive line allowed 48 sacks, which was 7th most in the NFL. And this is, as of right now, Sam Howell's team, and I just don't think you want your young quarterback to get hit, 48 times getting sacked. That's not going to help him get develop or grow. That's just going to get your guy killed out there. Another team I like is the Tennessee Titans. We talked about Ryan Tannehill, and if he does stay, we've seen when he gets hurt, it's the quarterback drop-off there is kind of bad. I think Tennessee, we've seen their whole old line, and just the injuries for the past years just took a toll on them. So I think you go out there and get a new guy to help this O-line. I know you're losing Taylor Lewan. He's been hurt for the last 2-3 years, and I think it's just you get all that out and just build a new offensive line, and you don't want to waste what you have left in Derrick Henry. I think there's still plenty there, but I think even Derrick Henry said that he doesn't want to rebuild. So, I understand looking at Tennessee roster, it's kind of hard not to go into a rebuild at this point, but I think they go get maybe a new offensive line piece like Caleb McRae and maybe build up some more stuff, and they might can run it one more time in that division, but they're going to add some more pieces. But I do like Caleb McRae going to one of these two teams.
Yeah, I like Caleb McRae, particularly to the Tennessee Titans. I think he's a nice scheme fit. They run a lot of power running plays in Atlanta, and that's what they like to do out there in Tennessee as well. But they also like to get out and pull some of those inside zone and outside zone and all of that stuff. So I think it's a good fit for McRae in Tennessee. I think they'd probably need to maximize what they have in Derrick Henry. But I just look at that Tennessee roster, and man, I just don't think they could really have a whole lot going for them anymore. I think Jacksonville should be the favorite in that division going forward. But my next guy is Gardner Minshew. I have him going to the Miami Dolphins. I think Miami needs a solid backup quarterback. With Tua Tagovailoa being the guy in Miami, they need a top-of-the-market backup quarterback, and Miami has struggled to find that worthy backup for Tua. I think in 2021, they signed journeyman quarterback Jacoby Brissett, and that was a really bad signing because Brissett is just about as different of a quarterback from Tua as you can be. And Teddy Bridgewater wasn't much better in 22. He just couldn't stay on the field. So the offense just isn't the same when Tua's not in the starting lineup. They need a backup who can push the ball down the field. Miami pushed the ball down the field more than anyone last year, and it's critical for their success offensively. I think any guy that can step in behind Tua needs to be able to stay healthy. That's a real big thing. You can't have two injury-prone quarterbacks. I will say Miami needs that guy, and I think Minshew is that guy. Minshew got 2 starts this season with Jalen Hurts out of the lineup. He passed for 629 yards with 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. This is a younger veteran who has experience in several systems. Miami can't go into next season with Skylar Thompson as the backup. With the roster they have, that's doing the team no favors. You saw what Skylar Thompson looked like in the playoffs. It wasn't pretty, but to his injury history, you should expect that your backup will play at least a handful of games. As a Dolphins fan, I hope to see Tua all 17 games, but I'd highly encourage him to get a capable backup in Minshew. Minshew's play style more closely resembles Tua's, and it's a lot closer than Bridgewater and Brissett, where I would still say that Minshew is a little bit more of a gunslinger type quarterback than he is a precision passer, but I do think that is a good, really solid backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I like Minshew going to Miami a lot. We've seen enough, I think, of these backups that Miami has, and it just hasn't. The drop of plays just so much in Miami. I mean, if I'm them, I'm willing to pay a guy like Minshew a little bit extra just to get him here to if Tua does go down and get hurt. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen for Miami fans. But my fifth guy, and I'm very excited to see where he lands, is Kareem Hunt. I think the Philadelphia Eagles would be a sneaky spot for Kareem Hunt. I mean, Miles Sanders is a free agent, and I think he's going to be trying to look for that bag, we can say. So I think Kareem Hunt, I mean, that's a mean runner that the Eagles love running the ball anyway. So I think you go get Kareem Hunt. And you have Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell here, but I think Kareem Hunt's just a big upgrade above them. Kareem Hunt, I think, would add just to that passing game and just, like I said, running a mean runner that I think the Eagles would love to have, and in their read option, just a nice piece. They even showed this year when Christian McCaffrey was on the market, they went after him. That it showed then they didn't really believe that Miles Sanders was giving them maybe all that juice they were looking for. I think Kareem Hunt would be a solid add in Philadelphia. Another team I like to believe it or not is the Carolina Panthers. They went and got their head coach in Frank Wright. We seen what he was doing with Jonathan Taylor. I think you get Kareem Hunt, and I don't know what the Panthers are thinking at quarterback right now, but that's just a nice guy to have in the backfield like I hinted on, just a guy you could dump it off to if you need to, and a mean runner. I think Foreman, he was nice in Carolina this year, but that's another free agent running back. I think he's going to go look for a bag somewhere and have a full starting role somewhere. I like Kareem Hunt at both of these teams. I think the Eagles, to me, that's a scarier fit, but if he wants a full workload like he was crying about in Cleveland, I think the Panthers is a great fit for him too.
Yeah, I really like that fit for Philadelphia. I think Miles Sanders is probably out the door, like you were saying, but I think bringing a guy in like Kareem Hunt who can run downhill, he can run outside zone, he can catch passes out the backfield. I think he's a nice shoe fit for Philadelphia and what they want to do. I think Kareem Hunt still has plenty left in the tank. He had a little bit of a down year last year, but I don't think that's much of him. I think that was a little bit more of what they had going on in Cleveland. But my next guy is Irv Smith. I really like Irv Smith. I understand he hadn't had the best start to his career, but I think he could be a really nice fit for the Cincinnati Bengals. Former second-round pick Irv Smith's career has yet to take off, but this might be the opportunity that he needs. With Drew Sample leaving in free agency, I think the Bengals would be wise to sign a young, playmaking tight end like Irv Smith. He's only 24 years old, and he should be fully healthy and recovered. He'll be 2 years removed from the meniscus tear he suffered in training camp 2021. He also suffered a high ankle sprain in 22. But I think Irv Smith is a player that Cincinnati can move all around their offense. He can play fullback. He can line in the backfield, align tight, split out wide as a receiver, and nasty splits next to the set. I think he can be a threat from just about anywhere on the field, and that could be a scary element to add to the Cincinnati Bengals offense that likes to push the ball down the field. This is a little bit more of a swing of the bat than some of the other tight ends on the market, since he really hadn't put together an entire season's worth of work since 2019, but he didn't set career highs in 2019. He set them in 2020, where he only played in 13 games, posting 365 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns, and posting 12.2 yards per reception, which is the same yards per reception that Travis Kelce had in 2022. I think this is a player that could become a feature piece for that high-octane vertical passing offense. But the injury history and some of the other things, without the consistent work that is established, you might need to draft a guy as well to play with this, but I really like Irv Smith for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I like Irv Smith going there a lot. Like you kind of said, Sample's gone and Hayden Hurst is leaving the building more than likely. That's 2 free agents at tight end, so they're going to have to get somebody unless Hayden Hurst come back. But I think you go get Irv Smith, and I think in a couple, maybe next year, you're going to have to pick, if you bring Hayden Hurst back, Joe Mixon, Hayden Hurst, or T. Higgins. I mean, I'm signing T. Higgins and going to get me an Irv Smith that I signed to a 2-3 year deal on the cheaper end, so then I can keep T. Higgins in the building. So I think Irv Smith would be a nice fit there if he stays healthy. And it, to me, maybe if it's a healthy season, I mean, that's an upgrade to me over Hayden Hurst. I mean, 12.5, that's a Travis Kelce's a good comparison to get compared to at the tight end position. Yeah, our links should be down below. We're working on our whole social media. Y'all go check it out. Give us a follow. I mean, we'll be excited. We welcome ideas. By all means, you want us to maybe talk about a certain subject, just drop it in one of our comment sections on one of our social media platforms. Is there anything else you want to add, Brian?
No, I think that concludes the pod today. I hope everyone enjoyed. We'll be back posting 2 episodes a week. Thank everyone for listening and have a great day.